What's going on, guys? Sensible Prepper Live. Robbie Wheaton.
I made it.
Robbie Wheaton's here. Wheaton Arms. Check out Wheaton Arms. Makes the best Glock aftermarket parts. Also, the official supplier for the upgrades for the Palmetto State Armory Dagger, which the Palmetto State Armory Gathering is coming up March 22nd, 23rd.
Yep.
So we're going to be there. That's a great event. If you're in the area, it's in Clinton, South Carolina. It's just an incredible event. A lot of vendors are there. It's really just cool.
It's at the Clinton house.
The Clinton house.
Not at the Clinton's house.
No, we're not at the Clinton's house. No, we wouldn't do that. But it's a great place to go, and all the major gun manufacturers are there, and you can shoot and try out all kind of different things. And it's just a great community that's there. Also, Sarah Mack, I hadn't finished with Robbie, but check out the Robbie Wheaton YouTube channel. One of the things he is really working on right now, which I think you'll find interesting if you're into gardening and self-sufficiency, is they are doing a whole series on their gardening processes.
That's right. Yep. We started with our indoor and outdoor sowing methods and comparison contrast between
and not
those.
sowing.
No, not needle sowing, but planting. And but we're going to be documenting our garden from seed to harvest throughout the season this year with our early season stuff, and then with our summer crops as well, and posting all of that on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of good stuff coming this summer.
Yep.
So we'll see how that goes. And guys, one of the big things is, and what we're talking about today is black markets. And so being able to produce is a very important skill and an element of survival. Also, we really appreciate Sarah Mack. She's over on the computer. You can ask questions at any time. She'll document it, note it, and then when we take a break, she'll ask those questions, and we'll try our best to answer.
And don't forget, I do have a YouTube live tonight on my YouTube channel from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you get a chance, pop over there and check that out.
Always does a great job over there. So check out Robbie Wheaton's YouTube channel. There is a link down below in the description. And also, we appreciate Exotac. I like to have my props, but we ran late. So Exotac makes the best fire starters on the market. They're made down in Winder, Georgia. Just really high quality. You can get cheaper, but you're not going to get better. And you can get 20% off using Sootch 20. Everyone needs a fire kit. You need a fire kit, not just a Bic lighter, not just some matches, but having a ferro rod or having some different methods to be able to start fire.
Gasoline. Lots of
gasoline. Yeah, gasoline works. But you may not want to go by Robbie's when you want to start a fire. But, really, it's important to be able to create fire. Fire will boil your water. It'll cook your food. It gives you warmth. It gives you light, and it can keep predators at bay. It takes care of a lot of different survival needs if you're in need, which, could happen or not happen. But you should always be prepared. So Exotac, 20% off using Sootch 20. Link down below in the description. We appreciate Exotac. Plus, they're just good guys. Today, we're going to talk about something that we've talked about this in different ways. This is really the black markets. And a lot of this has to do around bartering. But I think, we live in a very consumer-driven society. We have a disposable. Everything's disposable. Things get thrown. And I heard, I think it was Patrick Bet-David was talking about there were 70 million tons of clothes thrown away last year.
Yeah.
70 million tons.
Probably enough to clothe the entire world.
Right.
Threw away.
And then on the other hand, we have storage units full of stuff, and it's a weird dichotomy. I mean, it's just strange. And a lot of times, if something just kind of sort of breaks, instead of mending it, instead of fixing it, we toss it. And so we're going to talk about black markets because the economy right now is really sucks. I mean, just to be quite blunt. And, food prices are up 40%. Rent and buying a house is out of sight for a lot of people.
Heard something this morning on the news. Automobile prices for financing a car with perfect credit, you're at like 10%. People that don't have quite perfect credit, maybe you have good or very good credit, 15+% to finance a car.
Good gosh.
Yep.
The thing is, guys, too, is, you see that monthly payment, you can, I think I can afford that, which you think twice about it after a year. But, you think you can afford it, but you don't know what the future holds. And, it's one of those things to where we need to be really careful. And this isn't doom and gloom. This is really thinking about things outside the box. If things happen, what do you do? How do you get yourself prepared? And honestly, a lot of these things are things that really are simple to employ if you put a plan together.
Yep.
And so, black market. What is a black market? Well, during the Weimar Republic, right after World War II in Germany, the Dutch mark went to just valueless. They'd already gone through that with the Depression, but now they're back at it, and their money's completely worthless. And the government, though, stepped in and started giving out rations. They would ration food. They would ration the supplies that they had on hand. And what the Germans called it were death rations, because it just wasn't enough. People were losing weight. People were getting sick. It just wasn't enough. So people started trading and bartering and just doing whatever they could to be able to survive. And here's the thing, guys, supplies, you may look and say, man, I've got a lot of stuff around, but supplies can dwindle quickly. It's funny. We've been to Home Depot recently about 50 times. And, it's always, you got something you really need. So you got to run down there and get that thing you need. And we live in this very convenient world. Or we get on Amazon, eBay, whatever you're doing.
2 days it's at the house.
Yeah. Or even one day sometimes, like boom.
Same day.
I mean, stuff arrives and, you got it made. But we need to think more. My grandparents lived through the Depression, and there was a lot of stuff. The old thing about tinfoil.
Recycling tinfoil.
Always had tinfoil.
Yep.
And I'm going, what the heck? But she would save that tinfoil and she'd put it back because she knew the different items that were very valuable during that time of scarcity. We live in a land of plenty, but we're already seeing some problems with scarcity. And it's ebbs and flow. We saw it really big during COVID.
Yep.
Now, but let's talk about something. The thing is, the Weimar Republic, those people ended up just black markets. The thing about it was black markets were illegal. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago about total control. With the government right now, the government wants control. And when I say control, I'm not talking about necessarily a devious motivation. It's not necessarily, now some of it is, but really they just want to know what's going on, how they can control the drug syndicates, how they can control crime, and they use terrorism, and they use these buzzwords, which, and we as the American public get on board, and we're like, yeah, we need to stop that. The war on drugs, and or the war on illegal aliens coming across the border. We've got to stiffen things up. And, we talked about this the other day, was when I went to get my driver's license. We lived in North Carolina for a number of years. We moved back down to South Carolina. I'd had a license in South Carolina for years, but it had been a number of years since I've had it. The documentation that I had to put together to prove who I was and document it was crazy compared to what it was before. All of this is in the name of stopping illegals from getting driver's license, falsely. But the fact is with that community, they were producing Social Security cards, driver's license, documentation. I mean, there's a whole network. A lot of times we don't even understand it. When people come into this country, a lot of times, and they can't survive with the system because they're here illegally, there are industries that provide documentation for them. So here's the thing. The more that the government gets control over these things, it's like gun control. Oh, no, we're going to protect your right for self-defense, but we're going to implement this law and this law and this law to get these other people that aren't abiding by the law already. And all it does is put more burden on law-abiding citizens. And it's that way with everything. This thing with the global climate and, this initiative, these green initiatives, they're killing us. Because they have this agenda, but they don't think about, they're trying to protect us. But with that, they've got to put control into place. So black markets are something they can't control because people are doing things that they don't know about, and they want to know about it. They want to know everything. And the problem is now you become even possibly a felon for doing things that, oh, well, that goes against the tax code.
You can't tax a black market.
Right. And so it gets more and more to where, oh no, this is not helping the greater good. This country was based on individualism. It was based on individual rights. We are moving like net break speed at collectivism, which means what's better for the greater good is more important than the individual. And what that means is that our identity and our creativity and our initiative and all the things that the Constitution hope to protect disappear. Your right for free speech. Oh, well, now this fake news and all these outlets that are telling false things, we got to stop that. Guys, I'm telling you, it is in every level of our life, the control that's coming. Facial recognition. They can even now watch your gait, the way you walk, and they can identify you by that. They can identify you by so many different ways. Control. Now, so with all that being said, now that I've got y'all happy and feeling fuzzy inside, let's think about goods and services, stuff that's coming into the country. There are 4 choke points in the world that if any one of these points were to stop, it would disrupt global commerce. It wouldn't necessarily end it, but it would disrupt it. And one of the first is the Suez Canal. 12%, and in fact, I think it's like 20%. It's 1/5 of all oil and gas productions and goods and global services come through the Suez Canal.
Mm-hmm.
It saves from them having to go down by the Cape Horn of Africa, and it makes it really fast. It really connects Europe to Asia. And so that was a very important place. A few weeks ago, a ship was crippled in the Suez Canal. It took them like months to get the thing out. It completely froze up, all this transportation, all these supplies.
There were a lot of ships behind it that were stuck as well that couldn't back out of the canal to go around the Cape Horn. So they were stuck there in the canal as well.
Right. And that's just a normal event. Now, the thing is, we look at it and say, well, good night. I mean, Gaza's right there, Egypt. And I mean, what's going on over there that could erupt, that could really disrupt the canal. And then you've got the Houthis that are firing missiles at ship and shipping. That disrupts the Suez Canal waterways, the Red Sea. Okay, so Suez Canal. Then you've got the Strait of Hormuz, which actually 40% of all gas and oil go through the Strait of Hormuz.
Wow.
And it is vulnerable to terrorism. And then you have the Panama Canal. Now the U.S. Army has just put out a report that it is ripe for terrorism, even though the Panama Canal is kind of like one of those areas that's not really, you wouldn't think that.
Mm-hmm.
But and 2, one of the big problems of the Panama Canal right now is they've had a series of droughts in that area, and the water levels have dropped to where they're really concerned that they're not going to be able to get ships through there. Mm. Yes, they can go through the Straits of Magellan. They go around the bottom. They can go around to the Antarctica, and come back around. But it takes a lot of time. And it costs a lot of money.
Well, those are very rough, dangerous seas as well. That was one of the big reasons why the Panama Canal was so important, was because the seas were so rough going around the end of South America that they had a lot of ships that sank going around there. So they ended up developing the Panama Canal so they could bypass that area, not because it's really longer, but because the seas are a lot calmer going through the Panama Canal.
That's right. Yeah. And then also, and there's actually talk about I think it's in Nicaragua. They're talking about a canal area, a place to be able to come through.
Interesting.
So they've been talking about that for years, but it is a possibility. But now the U.S. doesn't have control of the Panama Canal. Actually, the Chinese do. So, and then the last one is, and I need to look at it because is Malacca Straits, and that's in Asia. And Malacca Straits, 40% of oil and gas production come through that area, and 40% of global trade comes through there. And there's a lot of pirating, there's a lot of terrorism and other things that threaten that area. Those 4 areas are the major choke points of the earth, and they're all kind of vulnerable. So, we could have a disruption in supplies. Maybe just one of those go out. Maybe all 4. If all 4 went, we'd really be kind of bad. But even if one went, it would really affect our daily lives if it was an extended period of time. So those 4 choke points are important. I'm going to look because we've got a lot of stuff to go through. And in a few minutes, we are going to take a break. So commodities. And we need to look at that. What do you have on hand? What are the commodities that we have that we can that have excess, number one, to be able to trade, barter, sell. And that is your currency. Commodities are currency.
I think it's so interesting. I had a couple of customers come by and drop some guns off this morning to have some work done to them. And we were talking about the exact same thing. We were talking about currency and commodities. And both of them said, these were younger guys, probably in their mid to late 20s. Both of them said that they never carry cash anymore, that they only carry their cards. And they were like, I just don't really see a need for cash. I just carry my card. And I'm like, that card isn't going to do you any good if it's not backed by cash anymore. If you can't get cash, if the banks are closed and you can't get cash, the debit card machines are down, EMP attack, you have any kind of hacking with our banking system and you can't get cash, that card is worthless. You can't buy anything with that piece of plastic. Cash, you can walk into any store and pay for stuff with cash and no issue whatsoever. That piece of plastic, if that piece of plastic you can't access your account to be able to buy things, it's worthless.
Well, and the other thing about cash is it gives you some privacy.
Mm-hmm.
We can walk in. I have a good friend of mine. He buys everything with cash, everything. And he will drive 2 hours to go to some place and look for what he's looking for and try to hope that it's there. And it's inconvenient. It's very inconvenient. And, it's like we talked about the other day when you have that little old lady in front of you at the grocery store and you're sitting there going, hurry up, because she's sitting there putting her stuff back in, and it can be. But cash gives you privacy. But there is a war on cash.
Yep.
The number two part about cash is that inflation is eating it alive. It is eating it. And that's the one thing in the Weimar Republic was they had cash,
right?
But it was worth nothing. And so they began to barter. So they had markets that opened up. They had like the farmer down the street, but they had to get to know these people. And everybody kind of worked as a network because it was illegal. Because the Weimar Republic, just like the U.S. government's going to want to know what you're doing with that money. Well, then why'd you do that? Well, what do you need that for? Why have you got that? And so this gives you some freedom. Now, we talked about this a little bit last week, but having cash and, we talked about something last week, Robbie. I don't remember what it was now. All of a sudden, I just went.
I would help you, but I wasn't here last week. I was cutting trees
I was
all
here,
day.
so I was in trouble. That's in trouble. But anyway, guys, putting together some things and making sure that you have some extra things put aside. And we're going to talk about the top 10 kind of items that would be used in a black market. But let's talk about black market for a minute. What is a black market? Well, let's think about prohibition. When prohibition was going on, they had the speakeasies where you could go in and drink and everything. But there was a network of these gangsters that were trying to get around government restrictions
on alcohol. Yep.
What if food was a government restriction? What if firearms, which they are in a point, firearms and ammunition is a restriction to where if you got caught with it, you're going to jail. If you got caught with some extra food in your vehicle while you were going somewhere, right now, if you have a lot of cash in your vehicle, you can get arrested for that. Yeah. It can be confiscated.
Until you can prove where it came from.
Right.
That's right.
Not innocent before proven guilty. We moved away from that. So what is it when daily living becomes illegal? Bartering, trading, buying things in cash. What happens when that becomes illegal? And guys, some of you are going, it's kind of dumb. That is coming. I can promise you. The thing is right now, our Congress has already knocked down the digital dollar, tried to keep it, but it's coming. It's going to come sooner or later. And they keep pushing back on it because they know that once that happens, it's going to encompass every bit of banking. We've talked about that. You say, well, I got my bank card. They already know. They don't know. It's partitioned to where they can't really get into it without court orders. Once you centralize the dollar, they can watch everything you do. And if you're buying a little bit too much beef which restrictions on that are coming. I mean, we're living in an age right now to where we are on the precipice of control. So what are you going to do to free yourself? How are you going to be able to get the supplies you want? Okay, so first off, number one, hands down, first barter item, no questions, are vices. You've got tobacco, and that comes in a lot of different forms. Or just nicotine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one thing, I used to smoke a lot of cigars, and so I switched and went to Zen pouches.
Mm-hmm.
There's an attack on Zen pouches right now in Congress. There's an attack on Zen, which is absolutely stupid. But, tobacco, liquor, or wine, any alcohol, and really wine is a real good one because it lasts so long.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the longer you have it, if it's a good bottle of wine, the better it is.
Yep.
So, and of course, beer is not going to last that long, but alcohol, in the short term, beer, people are going to want it. People have to have it. People that are on it and it's part of their daily life. Coffee is a vice because I got to have my coffee in the morning.
I would say coffee and tea or caffeine in general.
Right. Yep. Caffeine. I mean, those are things. Drugs. Now, that's illegal. And, to me, it needs to stay legal. I mean, that's just my point on it. But
there's two ways you could look at it. There's drugs that you have to have to survive if you're a diabetic or different things like that, high blood pressure. There's drugs you have to have to survive. And then there's drugs that you want to have to get high.
Right.
And both of those are, one is a must have, one is a vice, but both of those people are going to want in any type of black market situation.
Well, it's funny because the war on drugs really correlates, and it's a foreshadowing of what we could face with commodities, with just basic commodities. I mean, we saw it with, the prohibition, but, you get caught with these items and you could be taken to jail. Not now, but it could be coming. If you live in California and you don't want to go through a waiting period or background check for ammunition, and you drive over to Arizona and you pick up a couple of cases of ammunition, and you're driving right back across the border, and guess what? All of a sudden you get stopped and they see the ammunition. And then, guys, it is alive and well in this country already. It's in certain spots, but it's still there.
Or you go the opposite route with that. You drive from Arizona over into California and buy some marijuana and drive back to Arizona with it.
Yeah.
Same thing.
So there are restrictions on things, and there are going to be more restrictions. It's funny though, because what they're doing is they're loosening the restrictions on drug use, things that actually decimate our country, and yet they're wanting to grab hold of the things that just make us more independent.
It was a very simple reason why. People that are on drugs are easier to control.
That's true. And they have that market. Yep. Okay, so we have that. That's your number one. Number two, and I'm not necessarily going to say this is in order but firearms and ammunition. Now, it was really funny to me when we had COVID and the shelves just went with ammunition. I mean, and even guns, but ammunition particularly. And I remember Robbie and I both have a good police friend of ours that lives in a community right around us. And he called me and he said, "Don, what is going on?" And he had video of the shelves at Walmart empty of ammunition. This was right at COVID. And I was like, what? I thought, why would that happen? But, and then I later on realized that, but there was a lot of people that were fearful.
They were.
And they were afraid their stuff was going to come, home invasions or whatever they were going to take. So, but that dried up. Ammunition is a big thing that could be used for barter, especially in a volatile environment. Guys, we have the elections coming up this year, and there is two outcomes. Unless something really crazy happens, we're probably going to see Trump and Biden, unless they replace Biden with others. But still, we've got two outcomes. If we get Trump in office, all hell's going to break loose. I mean, it did the first time. You can imagine what it'll be this time. Guys, I'm telling you, I'm just going to give you a fair warning ahead of time. It could get really ugly, especially in urban areas, cities, places like that. But if the right feels like the election was stolen again, it could get really ugly that side, because voting is a basic fundamental right here in the U.S. And if you can't vote, or if your vote doesn't count, you are a slave to their wishes.
Well, and that's the thing. There's a lot of people on both sides right now, whether you're on the left, the right, or in the middle. There's a lot of people that feel like the last election was not fair. And, I think there's a lot of people closely watching this election to see how it goes. And I really believe that it doesn't matter if it leans left or if it leans right, that there's going to be a lot of people upset and feel like the election was stolen either way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. So, we've got a very volatile situation coming up now. Because of that, we may see ammo and firearms selling even faster than they have. And typically in an election year like that, if you have a threat, a lot of people do that. That happens. But one thing, a caveat, is in Argentina, when they had their economic collapse back in 2001, which they've had numerous since then. Thank goodness they've got somebody in there that's turning things around. But the government came in and passed a law and said you can't barter and trade in ammunition or sell ammunition unless you have a license. Well, then it became a black market, and then you're vulnerable to law enforcement. So, you may have your ammunition stored up. Okay, so precious metals. Some of you guys poo-poo on precious metals. Precious metals have been around since the beginning of man, pretty much. As soon as he found gold, it became precious, and he began to use that as currency. And gold and silver were our main currency from up until the past 150 years. I mean, as far as backing our currency. So in China right now, and Russia and India and a lot of these nations are buying up gold. Gold is at its very highest it's ever been, ever. I haven't looked at today's, but this weekend when it closed, it was at
2050-ish.
Oh, it's past 2100.
Did it go over 2100?
Guys, it is past 21. Listen, you're not seeing this on the news at all.
Yeah.
When it reached about 2000, that was the highest it's ever been. It's now $2,141.
Wow, almost $2,200.
It's getting up to
that's over $100 since last Friday.
Yeah,
last Friday it was $2,039.
At the weekend it was $2,094.
Wow!
But then it freezes for the weekend. Right. And Monday comes. Wow, guys, I'm telling you, now that to me, this is a real life reaction because that is crazy. That means your dollar's worth less, is what it means. Silver right now, though, has been kind of humming. It's been kind of hanging around. So
it's still in the $20-ish range.
Yeah. But so when I first started buying gold, it was $300 an ounce. 300. That all tell you something. That tells you that I'm old. Is what it tells you. Precious metals, guys. What it does is it protects your wealth. Obviously, if you have a bunch of gold 2 months ago, you just made a lot of money.
Diversify your portfolio.
Just get some. You don't have to go crazy, but just put some back. It is something you can easily barter. It's probably the easiest barter item because it has a known value to it. Known value.
Worldwide value.
And if you're looking for somebody to really purchase some silver and gold, check out Scottsdale Mint. Those guys are in Arizona. I've known those guys, Josh, for 15 years. And very trustworthy, great people. They mint coins for over 20 countries. Scottsdale Mint. Check it out. Okay, so then luxury items, which makes it kind of funny. Luxury items, you think, well, man, that's going to be worthless. But watches, you look at Rolex watches have gone through the roof.
Yes, they have.
Because people that have money are looking at it and going, my money's worth less. I got to put it into commodity.
It's a tangible item that you can invest in that will retain its value over time.
Right.
It's just like precious metals. People buy luxury items. They buy automobiles. They buy watches. They buy land because those items will retain or increase in value over time.
As the dollar drops, buying something like that locks you in.
That's right.
And that'll go up in value too. But it's just something that the wealthy do. They buy luxury items during crisis. Think about it. Just think about it. And you need to know, though, what people are looking for in those luxury items. But firearms are definitely a luxury item and expensive firearms.
That's right.
Collectible firearms. That's where they start to sell and the prices go up. Okay. We got so much to talk about. So much. We didn't get. And then, of course, food and water. Food and water. One thing that we took a couple of years break from chickens, but we're getting ready to start back this spring. We've already got everything lined up. and we're going to be doing some videos on it. But having a way to produce your food is vital. Plus, it can give you a bartering potential.
That's right.
If you have extra. Gardening, like Robbie was talking about, gardening is huge. You can also, and you can actually sell canned food. Canning, like a jar of canned food. You can use that to barter. If you have extra canned food, you can use that for barter. Now, obviously,
why do they call it canning when you put it in a jar?
Good point. The thing is, guys, is you may go, well, why am I going to give away my food because I don't have am I going to have enough? So that you got to think about these things through. But having food put back or a way to produce food is going to be vital. The Victory Gardens, and this was a prime example here in the United States, is a lot of items were rationed, and they encourage people. But let me tell you this: the global eco forum, bull crap, whatever, the green initiatives have now said that gardening, a home garden, produces 6 times more carbon emissions than a commercial garden. They're going after everything. I'm telling you guys, it's just ridiculous. Having tools, having canning supplies. And that's one thing we've been doing lately is we've been buying up canning supplies. And so Shannon will go and pick up extra cans, lids, whatever, or jars, and we're doing that.
Yep.
So,
and we've been doing the same thing. I'll even hit the thrift stores and stuff, because a lot of times you can pick up flats of jars, unused jars at the thrift store, and then you just have to buy lids and seals for it, and you can pick them up a lot cheaper than you can buying them new.
Right. And if you buy excess, those are going to be a good barter item.
Yep.
So the jarred canned food and the supplies, they're going to be worth their weight. It was funny when COVID hit, you couldn't find
canning
lids.
Jars.
You couldn't find canning
seals.
Jars because people started kind of going, we're going to do this at home.
Yep.
Tools are very important.
Non-power tools.
Right.
Manual tools, your shovels, your hammers, your hand drills, hand crank drills. That's something that you and I both are big on, are buying antique tools, because they work without electricity. And if I need a tool and there's not electricity available, or maybe I don't want to make a ton of racket because of electricity, these hand tools work really well. But they're also a great barter item that people that have never considered those items may consider them if it's in a situation where they have to have that tool.
And you may be able to have a service. One thing I've got is a grinder, and it has a wheel on it. You think, man, that's going to wear you out. But the way the wheels are set, man, you start doing it and it goes,
yep.
And I could sit there and sharpen knives, sharpen farming implements, do whatever, and barter that skill out, which is one of the things that we have on here is skill. Skill is a very important bartering tool.
Yep.
My grandmother during the Depression, she cut hair. My grandfather was in college. My grandmother went around and she would just cut hair. She wasn't a hairdresser, but she made very little, but at that time it was worth it. So, having those skills, medical supplies.
Yep. Medical supplies is a huge one. And you're seeing it. You go to the store and, you've got antibiotics that aren't on the shelf. You have medical supplies that aren't on the shelf. Just your common everyday stuff. I mean, I've seen Band-Aids out of stock. I'm like, why don't you have Band-Aids on the shelf?
A lot of people have boo-boos.
Yeah. But those are things that you need to stock up on, and not just enough for you, but enough that you can use to barter with as well, because those items will be worth a lot more money.
And they're pretty cheap.
They are.
I mean, when they're there, they're pretty cheap. Now we're gonna hit one more. We're gonna go to some questions because we're getting excited here. But we talked about animals, and we have a girl that lives right up the road, and she raises chickens and rabbits. And she trades and wheels and deals around, and she just gives them to us free a lot of times. But there are ways to be able to create a business, especially if you have chickens. Now, some of you guys are going, man, I live in the middle of New York City. I can't have chickens. But there are other things that you can do. Is like, if things start to go south, get out of the city. Number one.
Well, the big thing is, especially with chickens and rabbits, you don't have to have a huge plot of land to be able to raise those animals on it.
That's true.
You need a very small area to be able to raise chickens and rabbits. And rabbits perpetually reproduce. I mean, you've heard the old saying, like rabbits. But y'all know.
We know.
But they reproduce really, really quickly. We were just talking about it before the show started. One of my favorite rabbits to raise to eat is called a Flemish giant. And those rabbits, you can go from the rabbit being born to harvesting that rabbit to eat it in 90 days. And they reproduce like every 60.
Yeah.
So you've got a constant supply of them regenerating and reproducing.
It's going to be more than you can possibly eat.
It is.
Which helps you to be able to barter.
It's a great barter item.
Okay, let's go to a couple of questions.
Gary Hernandez, Self-Defense and Urban Survival says, "Hi guys, I'm questioning buying off the black market because there may be nowhere else to get it, but don't you worry about buying stolen items?"
Well, the thing is, it's like going to the flea market. A lot of times it is what it is.
There's always a question mark with buying anything black market or gray market. That item could have been, it could be stolen. There is a potential for that. You can always ask, is this stolen? If you want to clear your conscience, but
it goes, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, then I guess I'm gonna take that.
It may be, it may not be. It's that, but that's always going to be a question anytime you're dealing in a gray market or a black market.
Just make sure it doesn't have any serial numbers. You'll be all right. But yeah, that is something to consider. And there have been people that have been busted for doing that kind of stuff. But I think looking at who you're buying from, and I think too with the black market, it evolves.
Mm-hmm.
And most of your countries around have markets, black markets, or not black markets, but just markets.
Right.
And we even have farmers market and things like that. And you have markets downtown. It won't take a lot for a market to start springing up.
Right.
GBO9 asks, "I know that Glock is the SHTF handgun due to its simplicity of upkeep and its dependability. So what pistol caliber carbine would you say would be the SHTF carbine to get?"
Personally, I would say one of the AR-15 variants in 9mm that uses Glock magazines. That way you have the cross compatibility with the magazines. Blowback operated, so it's a very simple design, very easy design. And just like with the Glock, very few replacement parts that you have to keep on hand.
Yeah, that's one thing about the AR that surpasses most is that, and you've seen them, and I've done them. I've probably done 100 builds like that, on video, is that anyone can put together an AR-15 with just a little bit of knowledge.
Yep.
So that is one thing. I agree totally with Robbie. There's a lot of really cool pistol caliber carbines out there. But if you want something that's like go to war type thing, or
simple, dependable, easy to service and keep serviced, keep spare parts on hand, the AR blowback operated 9mm are the way to go.
Mary White asks, how can you investigate if a certain city you want to move to is going to become a 15-minute city?
Yeah. Well, look at the politics, look at the area. There's a lot of people coming into that area. Listen, any urban area is sooner or later going to become a 15-minute city. That's the plan. It's the plan. So, and two, that really limits you from doing the things you need to do to be more self-sufficient, or to have some privacy, or to be able to do your own thing to survive. The farther out you get. So, but the farther out you get too, you kind of can get more vulnerable if you're not careful. So, I would say that any area politics.
Number one, absolutely.
And that's also geographically. But it's just like where we live. We live here in South Carolina, and Greenville, which is traditionally, South Carolina is very conservative, but the cities have become less conservative. And so we're seeing more in Greenville of so many people are moving into this area. It's changing the dynamic. Some of it for the good, some of it for not so good. But we're seeing a little bit of that coming. So to me, look for an area that's pretty strong. I was talking to my wife last night, and I said, here's the thing, because we were talking about some things that could happen, especially with the election coming up. Mm-hmm. And there's some could be some, and I said, the great thing is where we live is conservative. All the sheriffs
are very
around us, all the counties around us are very conservative. And that's one thing that gives you some protection, because the thing is these riots wouldn't happen if law enforcement would just clamp down and really stop it. They can do it. So I would look for an area that's fairly conservative minded, and then also, look at the political landscape, and that'll give you a good good gauge.
Baseline. Yep.
Okay, we'll come back to some questions in a minute, but we've got some more things to hit, and we're just I figured today. I said, you know what, we may have to stretch this a little bit, buddy. We're not even anywhere near getting finished, but we're working on it, right? Okay, so seeds. Seeds are a great way. Now, the thing is, seeds have a shelf life. But if you can get a hold of seeds, even if you have a farmer where you can get seeds, you can trade, barter, and sell. People are going to want to, if things start getting, the groceries go up, up, and up, and up, and your dollar's going less, 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 and less, you're going to be like, you know what? I don't like gardening, but I'm going to garden.
Yeah. And one of the good things with seeds, even though they lose some of their potency, so you start off first year with seeds. Anytime you buy seeds, you look on the package and it has a sell by date. So if the seeds were made in January, they have to be sold by January, or otherwise they go to like your Dollar Generals and stuff like that, where they can sell basically out of date seeds. But your seeds, even though they are outside of that 1 year window, they're still going to germinate. They just might not germinate at 100%. They might only germinate at 90% or 80%. But those seeds will still germinate as long as they've been kept in a cool, dry place. So even if you have to buy seeds that are 2 or 3 years old, and that's all you can get, buy them, because they will still germinate. They just won't germinate at 100% rate.
Right. So look at the date. That's important. Repair supplies, whether it's duct tape or, fittings like PVC pipes, wood. Maybe you have wood. One thing that I like to do is if there's a place up above us that lays pallets out, and I'll go by and pick up pallets.
Yep.
And because you can always do things, you can shape things, you can form, you can even do repairs if you had to. Could be temporary, could be permanent, but gives you some ideas.
You couldn't be more right on that with PVC. That's one thing that I always try and keep plenty of extra on hand is PVC cement. The primer and the cement, as well as extra different diameters of PVC piping. You can build all kinds of stuff with PVC, from structures to drains, whatever you need. So
fix your own plumbing.
That's right. Extra PVC and the glue and primer and everything is a great one to keep on hand.
Flex Seal. They're glues. Having different glues. Of course, they do go out after a while, but having some things to be able to do some repairs, tarps, things like that. So those things could actually be used. You could even take the items you have and barter to get something.
Right.
So definitely one thing. Matches and lighters. That's a no-brainer, but lighters, after a while, the fuel goes out. Matches, having ferrocerium rods, great idea. Having fuel
is a huge one. It's probably not going to be one that you're going to end up bartering, because it will be so valuable, but having extra fuel on hand for yourself is a must-have.
But you know what? If you're not stocking up on food, and you have a propane tank and you're like, I'm got to eat.
Yeah. That propane tank could be very valuable.
Yeah, it will be very valuable, and it may give you a couple of years to live. And
right.
Two, you can get the small 1-pounders. And to me, propane is probably the ultimate as far as a fuel source to put back.
The most stable,
right,
for being able to store, for sure.
Gasoline, you got to really have your ducks in a row to store gasoline.
And even then, you've got a year maybe before it starts going bad.
Yeah, and that's if you treat it.
That's right.
Okay, so those are some things that you need to have. What are some black markets that might open up? What in the world are you talking about? Well, flea markets. Those are already around. We have the biggest flea market on the planet just right down the road from us in Anderson Flea Market. And then we have the Pickens Flea Market, which is about the same size. And then we have the White Horse Road Flea Market. Everything, there's some big flea markets, and people go there and they barter and trade. Mostly they go and buy things. But that could change swiftly. If I go in there with a $20 bill and they say, man, that's not worth anything now. Okay, well, how about this? I got a carton of eggs, and so I need a shovel, or I need this, or I need that. And so you can go around. One thing about your barter items, though, is you want to make sure you kind of keep it at low denominations. One thing they did in Germany was during the Weimar, and of course, this is when people smoked more than they do now, is cigarettes were number one. So they'd take a pack of cigarettes and they'd give out a cigarette. They'd trade that. Or if it was something more valuable, they'd give you a pack or a carton. So you could be dropped down to denominations. One thing about precious metals is I like to have a lot of junk silver, because I have a dime. I don't want to, or if I have a big old chunk of silver, I don't want to put that on a carton of eggs. So, it gives me some denominations. Farmers markets. Number one, they're just fresh and they're around and it's just healthier. And so we love to go to farmers markets. You know, if you don't have a garden, go to a farmer's market and buy a bushel of beans and take them home and can them.
You know, we've got the farmers market in Columbia, South Carolina. It's about 2 hours from us, but it is a huge farmers market. And we're getting ready to go up there in a couple of weeks and get some stuff that we aren't sowing ourselves. We're going to buy some plants that are already up. But that one is a huge farmers market, and we'll be doing a video on that too.
Yeah, that'll be good. Yeah, but farmers markets are a great resource. But not only farmers, but also dairy farms. We buy beef from a local farm, and they produce beef. It's non-steroids. It's been grain fed. I mean, there's a lot of things they do to make that beef really good, and it is noticeably different, noticeably much better. But we built a relationship. So we can go, and if I'm gonna tell you, if things start getting scarce and people start clamoring, we have a relationship. And that's one of the things about this is you start to build relationships.
Well, and a big thing too, if you're buying local beef, you know, you've seen all of this on the news the last few months with this pink slime in your beef. If you're buying local beef from, you know, farm to table beef, you're not getting any of that. You're getting fresh 100% beef that doesn't have any kind of additives or anything in it.
Yeah, you go to Walmart and pick up a package of meat, and it's got an ingredients label on it.
Yes, it
it's
does.
like, what? Okay.
And it's not all beef.
Okay. Also, secondly, or number three is Facebook Marketplace. You know, that is a great place to trade, to barter, to sell. Now, you make sure you're armed or you have a security detail when you go. But, you know, the thing is that's a great way to be able to barter and sell. And so that could actually turn into more bartering. Now, if it becomes illegal, you know, that's another point. And all these things. The thing is take lessons from the cartels, the gangsters, the drug dealers, you know, see what they do. And then you got to kind of, you know, work that out. Stand on the corner with a bunch of eggs, you know, like, hey, you want some eggs, you know? So, you know, it's being ready to move at a moment's notice. One thing they used to have, and they may still have it, but it was a print thing called the I Wanna, and in there there's classifieds. I bought more guns out of there.
Yeah. Well, you know, up north, like Maine and that area, there is called Uncle Henry's. Is their I Wanna that they have up there, but it's just a buy sell trade magazine that you can pick up in a lot of your local stores.
So in two trades, even now, you know, people are open to trades. Okay, so variety stores. A lot of times, you know, these little there was a place up in Brevard called the Shorty's Trading Post, and they had all kind of stuff in there. And you know, it's just a place that had a lot of different things, and you know, people can buy and trade and sell. Yard sales, big one. And two, that's another way to finance your preps is at a yard sale or going to a flea market, setting up a table and getting rid of some of the stuff that, you know, you just have around. You can convert that into usable supplies. Friends and family, getting to just talking about it just around the place. I'm gonna talk to Robbie. I say, hey, you got this, I'll give you this for that. You know, we've done that in the past where we've, you know, like, hey, do this, and I'm gonna give you some ammo for it or whatever. And so, you know, you can just trade around. And then of course we talked about this already, skills. Skills are very important.
Skills are a huge one. Yeah, not only to be able to barter with, but to be able to, you know, keep yourself self-sufficient.
Right. Yeah, keep your repairs in your home up.
Yep.
You know, let's say, man, I don't have a skill. You know, I'm an IT guy and I haven't really done anything like that. Well, sometimes just going out and helping someone pick up wood and stock it up or stack it up and do whatever.
Physical labor is still a skill.
Yeah. But let me just say this, the more skill you have, the more desirable you'll be in that kind of economy. So, you know, you may say, you know what, I've just always thought about blacksmith. I just want to do it. And you start doing it, man, that's just a smart move, or pottery or whatever.
And most places locally around here, we have places you can go to learn how to do pottery. We have places around here you can learn to be a blacksmith and learn those skills. So there's a lot of places where you live. If you do a little searching, there are people that teach those skills where you can learn them.
Yeah, and you take that amateur just hobby, you're enjoying it, you think it's cool, you know, and then you can turn that into something a lot better. Welding,
huge
you
skill.
know, I mean, you know, okay, and having networks. Again, and we said this a second ago, playing around, but it's serious. You know, what the gangs are doing, what the drug cartels are doing, what, you know, they did in Prohibition, these different ways they did to get around to stay in the black market.
Well, I mean, it's just basic business. You know, if the larger your network is, the more access to things you're going to have.
Right.
And whether you're looking at that from a business perspective, from a criminal perspective, or whatever, it's networks allow you to reach more people to be able to get the things that you need.
All right, let's go to some questions. I want to throw Sarah Mack under the bus here. We're going to just throw her right under the bus.
Counselor Chip says, can you
What's up, Chip?
vacuum pack cigarettes? Don't they get crushed or can they go stale?
They can, any tobacco can go stale, but cigarettes tend to last longer. But to me, vacuum sealing anything is going to give it a longer shelf life.
Yeah, you may have to put it in some packaging that's going to some crush-proof packaging that'll prevent it from crushing it down as you vacuum seal it. But yeah, you should be able to vacuum seal that. No
yeah,
problem.
You could even put it in a little something that would, even a small box or something.
Yep.
Yeah. And ammunition. A lot of people do that. They'll vacuum seal ammunition, guns. There's a lot of things you can do.
Yeah, I vacuum sealed ammunition for years.
Yeah.
Scott Imager asks, easiest way to filter water? Just learning how to prepare, and water is so important. Thank you.
There's a number of different water filtration systems. We've been using the Berkey for probably
15 years.
Yeah. 14, 15 years. We use it every day. It makes our water. I can't even drink tap water. If I drink tap water, it almost makes me sick because of the chemicals, you get built up. Berkey went through some stuff about their certifications, and there was some question. It's been back and forth. Some of it is because they use silver, which colloidal silver is something we use. Silver is definitely a natural purification. It's even a natural antibiotic. I'm not saying that as a medical doctor. I'm just saying what we think. But the Berkey, but again, you need to do some research because they did have some issues a while back. And I don't know that anything really came of it. But there are some really good water filtration. And that's water that you can pour into this big reservoir, and then it comes out. You can put Coke in there and it'll come out clean. You can put red food dye in it and it'll come out clear. Mm-hmm. So, but there are some different systems. Honestly, I haven't paid attention to a point. You were doing some stuff at one point.
Yeah, there's a lot, and it really depends on what kind of water you're trying to filter. If you're filtering like well water or city water that you're just trying to remove, like heavy metals, or you're trying to remove, make sure there's no bacteria or anything like that in it. Your Berkey style filters, which are very dense, work well for that. If you're trying to filter like creek water or things like that that's got sediment in it, you're going to need to use some pre-filters to get the sediment out first before you go through your final filters, or otherwise you're just going to clog your filters immediately. So there's definitely some pre-filter stuff that you're going to have to look at depending on the type of water that you're using.
But even cloth, if you had a t-shirt, you set it up and you poured the creek water over it, it's going to filter out a lot, and you can do it multiple times to get it down. I mean, it wouldn't take it. And that's another thing, like t-shirts or old clothes and tossing your old clothes out. I mean, some are taking it down to the Goodwill is what we typically do. But, thinking about some of those things, you know what, I may need some of this stuff to use for other items, other things.
JCH74 says, good morning, guys. I'm looking to get into Hellcat Pro. It just became available in California roster. I was wondering what your thoughts on the Hellcat Pro. Thanks for all you guys do.
Hellcat's a great handgun. The Pro just gives you a full-size handgun that's thin. Mm-hmm. And, you can still do 15, 17 rounds, whatever magazine capacity, but it is super thin, but yet it gives you a large enough gun. When you take it to the range, you really enjoy it. So I'm a big fan of the Hellcat series. Robbie is not a fan of Springfield Armory, mainly because as a gunsmith, they don't furnish parts. You have to send it back to
It's one of the big things, for me, a lot of the firearms that I tend to buy, that I use, I want to be able to get replacement parts for those. So if something breaks on it, I can repair it myself. And Springfield is not one of those that you can get OEM replacement parts for their firearms. You have to send it back to the manufacturer for repair if something happens to it. And in a grid down situation, SHTF situation, that's not going to be an option for you to be able to send it back to repair. So for me, I tend to lean away from those firearms just because I can't repair it myself because I can't get parts for them.
But if you're like me and you go, that's not necessarily my go to war, all hell breaks loose SHTF firearm. This is my Glock, and I mean that's what But I want certain guns. I wouldn't let that hold me up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it again, like Robbie said, if this is like, okay, this is my pistol, and I'm going to do, that is a point. Most of those guns are very durable, but Robbie being a gunsmith for over 20 years, he's seen a lot of stuff. And so I really take heed to what he says. But it's according to, hey, you know what, California, we haven't been able to own these, and I really want one. And this is, as far as if all hell breaks loose, I got this, this, and this, I would jump on it because I love the Hellcat series. I've got a number of them. I have 2 of the pros. They're great guns. So there.
Kenneth asks, what's your opinion on solar ovens?
It's great. It's a free source of energy. I mean, biggest thing is having sun.
Right.
And, like sometimes we've had a number of days here where we haven't had sun, and all of our solar different things that we have, which we have our driveway alarm, and we have this one light that is a security light that comes on that's solar powered at the end of our driveway. And when we've had a couple of days of no sun, you can just see it. It starts to dim down after a few days. But that's the one thing about solar is you got to have really good sunlight to really, you'll get some, but it won't be enough really to do. But having that option is smart. I mean, and we've done some solar ovens, and they're great in having the skill.
It's one of those things that gives you another layer to be able to cook with, where you don't have to use any type of fuel, whether it's wood, gas, whatever, to be able to cook. You can cook with that solar oven if you have great sun, and you can save your other cooking items for later. You can save your wood for later. You can save your gas for later, your charcoal for later, and use the sunlight when you have great sun to be able to cook with and save those items.
That's a great
point. Evan Cave asks, Sootch, what kind of ammo do you carry in your Glock 29 when you're up in the mountains?
I usually Hornady critical defense or critical duty is my typical preferred self-defense round.
Yeah. If I'm out hiking, camping, backcountry stuff, it's usually Underwood hardcast for me.
Yeah.
I like something that's going to give me a lot of penetration for big, heavy-boned, four-legged predators, be it hogs or bears. So the Underwood stuff is normally what I carry in my 10 millimeter when I'm in the backcountry.
I need to borrow some Underwood.
I'll hook you up. I get a little bit.
I totally agree with him, especially with big predators. I mean, having those hard cast bullets, they're great. When I shoot typically and I carry a 10 millimeter, I just have the Hornadies, but I need to upgrade. So switch friends. You have friends. Keep you iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron.
Chris Matthews asked, hey, Don, Robin,
hey,
and
Chris.
Sarah Mack, is the low percentage bullion gold good or too low to matter? I'm more worried about straight silver and junk silver. Just curious. Thanks, as always.
Okay, low percentage. As far as gold, what I do is, and here's the thing. If you buy a 1/10 ounce gold, the premiums on it are higher. But, you want to buy a 1 ounce gold coin, and it's going to cost you $2,200 or maybe a little bit more because, it's not just the price of gold, it's the minting and the market has to sell and all that. But you're going to get more bang for your buck, your dollar. You're going to get more bang for it. But, let's say, man, I can afford a $250 piece of gold where I can't afford, a 1 ounce. So, and two, it breaks down those levels to where if you find something you don't want to spend $2,000 on or $2,500, you can take that and spend $250 on it. So having the lower denominations, and I know she said percentage, but it should be 9999% because that makes it really evident.
Yeah, but unless you're buying junk gold, which is only it might only be 40% gold, and then there's filler in there, 30%. Carat. Right. So if you're buying filler gold like that, that's a lower percentage. The best thing with that to do is to smelt it and separate it.
But you got to take it to a refiner. You got to send it to a refiner. We used to do a lot of that. We had a sign. I had a sign up said "Recycle gold." We recycle gold. We had people bringing in gold all the time.
Yep.
We'd melt it down, and we wouldn't even melt it down. We just put it in these boxes and we'd send it to a refiner. And of course, we were jewelers at the time, and they charge you a certain amount, and they send you the cash credit back for it. But that's something you need. You know, most of them won't just take like a small amount of gold. You gotta send a large amount. But what I would do if I had, like, let's say gold jewelry, is to maybe put that on Facebook Marketplace or something. But it's very difficult to sell that because people don't really know what they're getting. So you're usually going to get a lesser value. But gold coins, and it's one of the things that I love about gold coins, even over bullion. I don't usually buy bullion. I have some, but not gold. I have some silver bullion. Is that when I pull out a 50-cent piece that's got U.S. government on it and it's worn, and people can look at it and they go, "That's a silver coin."
Yep.
It's 90% silver. So even that, but you know, it has a value, a known value. So I'm really big about that. But with gold, if you can afford to get a gold dollar, you know, which is again a lot of money, that's going to give you the best bang for your buck. But then if you've just got gold dollars and you go to the farmer's market to trade, you're going to have a big truck to load all that food in. I hope that answered your question, Chris. Okay, it's 1 o'clock. Wow, So anyway, guys, I just hope this kind of is, you know, it's not doom and gloom. It's what's happening right now, and we need to be prepared for it. It's things we can see the signs all around us, and they're everywhere. So get yourself in good shape.
You know, the biggest thing for me with these black markets and gray markets is if you can identify areas now where you can buy, trade, and barter, you're going to be ahead of the curve later when this becomes a necessity instead of just a want right now. And when it becomes a need and you already have that network where you can access it, you're going to be ahead of everyone else.
It's true, because you know, we get a lot of times, and I haven't been lately, but we used to go down to this one flea market every Wednesday. It was on Wednesday. It was the Pickens flea market, and we go through, and I got to where I knew what people had in different areas. And if I was looking for something in particular, I knew that I'd go over here or I'd go over there. And so having that sense, and two, in a grid down situation, those places get bigger and bigger. And when I say grid down, I mean just an economic downturn
in the economy.
not even a SHTF situation. But Robbie is right. You know, having the mindset will put you way ahead of everybody else, because a lot of people, even if they're worried about it, they're not doing anything about it. I can tell you right now, 90% of the people that are worried about what we're talking about right now and that actually know it are not doing anything about it. They're just worrying. Turn your worry into action. You say, "Well, man, I just don't have a lot of money." Have a yard sale. Spring's coming. Have a yard sale, big yard sale. Go to the flea market and set up a table. We used to do that.
Yeah.
We used to set up tables. And we just to get rid of stuff. We were like, let's just go down there and get rid of all this stuff.
The storage building of stuff that you have, just collecting dust, you know, that you're not using, that you haven't opened in 5 years to take anything out. You just open it to put more stuff in there.
Right. And you
sell it.
And it's already paid for.
That's
what
right.
you paid for that's worth more than what was in it.
That's right. Sell everything that's in that storage locker, and one, do away with that bill, and two, put the cash from the stuff that you sell in your pocket.
Or take that and go out there and say, "Oh, look, I could barter this, I could trade this, I can do this," and then use that to barter and trade with. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching today. I hope that it kind of helps you to kind of get a mindset. But really what I want is, my goal is and motivation is for you to take action. You know, it even says it in the Bible. It says, "Don't be hearers of the word, but be doers," deceiving yourselves. And a lot of times people sit around and just, "Oh my gosh, look what's going on." And they do nothing. Do something. Even if it's going to the store today and buying a couple of cans of beans and rice, or a bag of beans and rice and a couple of cans of vegetables. Yes, it's 40% higher than it was 2 years ago, but hey, it gets you that far ahead.
But it might be 40% less than it is a year from now.
That's exactly right. Well, we really appreciate Robbie Wheaton for being here today. And check out Robbie Wheaton's video tonight, his live stream. It's from 6 to 7, 6 p.m. to 7 Eastern Standard Time. There is a link down below in the description. And you can, in fact, you can go over there now and click on it and be one of the waiting, and they'll notify you. And also Wheaton Arms, great resource, does custom gun work as well. If you have something really nice, you can get in touch with Robbie, and just does a great job, and just an all-around good guy. And then also we really appreciate Sarah Mack for being here and kind of keeping us in line and getting our questions to us. And again, Exotac, thank you for sponsoring today's episode, guys. Exotac, check out exotac.com. There's a link down below in the description. The best fire starters on the market. You need a fire kit. You really need a fire kit. You need the ability to create fire, and not those lighters that have been sitting in your drawer for 6 weeks and then you open them up and they don't work. So make sure that you have a good kit that you can. It's portable. You've got everything together, and Exotac does a great job. You get 20% off using Sootch 20 with the link down below in the description. Be strong. Be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.